And for much more on those among the ranked and those hoping to be there at the end of the year, welcome in Chris Vannini to touch on all things Big Ten related. So, Chris, when the coaches poll was released, we saw Ohio State ahead of Penn State, but the AP poll had the Nittany Lions just ahead of the Buckeyes. Who's your Big Ten favorite and why?
My Big Ten favorite is Penn State. I think I'm going to have them #1 in the country on my ballot, actually, just because of the amount of experience they have coming back. Drew Aller should be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They've added Trevor Pena, some good wide receivers there. Obviously, 2 of the best running backs in the country. They've got all the pieces. They've got a schedule that's pretty good, too. You've got Oregon at home. You've got Ohio State coming off of a bye. And I know the whole thing with Penn State is, like, can they get over the hump? If not now, then when, really? It does feel like Penn State might be the Michigan and Ohio State of the last couple of years, guys who turned down the NFL to come back and try to win it all, and I think there's a good shot that they do.
What about Ohio State? How differently do you view this team in comparison to the national championship team of a year ago?
Well, obviously, last year's team had a record number of NFL draft picks, but I think it starts with, is this quarterback competition real, or is Julian saying the guy? It feels like it's real, at least to this point, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not. Like they say, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks, but it all starts there because this is a team with probably the best wide receiver group in the country. Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith. You added Max Clare, the tight end from Purdue. They just need somebody who's going to get the ball to these guys. That's the question. You also have the 2 new coordinators on both sides of the ball. But Ohio State, they never have a down year. They'll be in the mix once again.
Of course, they won it all nationally, but it was Oregon who won the Big Ten championship in its first year. The Ducks lost a ton of names, not just to graduation, but Evan Stewart as well, to injury. How does the Ducks' #7 preseason AP ranking compare to your expectations?
I think it's a little bit low. I think I might have them a little bit higher. I mean, it's rare to have a guy who kind of sits and waits in the wings in Dante Moore, who has a year of starting experience back at UCLA. The Oregon people I talked to are really high on him. And I'm really high on Mekhi Hughes, the running back, who came from Tulane, had almost 2,800 yards the last couple of years. I think this is a team that's going to run the ball very well. And defensively had to replace a couple of guys on the line, but the linebackers are good. So, like Oregon, like they're always in the mix. Dan Lanning, I think he's lost 6 games. I think 4 of them are to teams who played for the national championship. So, like, he is always getting that team right to the top level, and I think they'll be there once again.
I'm excited. I get to head to Champaign shortly to watch Illinois' preseason camp on Wednesday. They're ranked #12, coming off an historic season under Brett Bielema, and so many key players from that team are back in 2025. What's your take on the Illini as a legitimate playoff squad?
Well, the schedule's a bit tougher. That's the first part. And I think with a lot of these teams and a lot of these big conferences is what's the schedule break that you get. Indiana turned out to have an easier schedule than maybe we thought at the beginning of the year. But Illinois got everything back. That experience is very important, especially on the lines in today's game of college football. Luke Altmaier took a big step last year. And Illinois, they won 10 games last year, but it's not like they put up huge numbers in anything. They were like 60th in offense and defense, so I think there's still a lot of room for them to improve. But as we see year to year, close games can go one way or another. We remember the Rutgers game last year, and all it takes is a couple bounces the right way, the wrong way to turn a okay season into a great season, or the other way around. But a lot of pressure on Illinois this year for the first time in quite a while.
I found Michigan's ranking at #14 to be really intriguing because they had a disappointing season. I know a great finish by beating Ohio State and Alabama in their last 2 games a year ago, but you also have a freshman quarterback. He's highly touted, but he's never taken a snap in college. What's the realistic outlook for the Wolverines?
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year, they were like the worst passing offense in the country, like bottom 5 nationally, and they still beat Ohio State and Alabama. So it's like, all right, if you can just get something competent in the passing game, you've got a really good team here. I think they're going to run the ball very well. I like the pieces that they have there and on the offensive line. Does Bryce Underwood, the quarterback, the 5-star, win the job, or do they start with Mikey Keene the veteran, especially when you're going to Oklahoma in week 2. Defensively, they're loaded again. This team is, we saw it in the bowl game, even though they had a lot of guys sit out, they've got future NFL guys stacked on this defense once again. It just comes down to, can you get something going in the passing game? Not only at quarterback, but the wide receiver position has been pretty thin as well last year, maybe coming into this year. So we still have to see, do they have those playmakers on the outside?
I'm glad you brought up Mikey Keene. Everybody's anointing Bryce Underwood. Keene has started a ton of games with a lot of success. He could be the guy to start the year. Now, there's a quarterback question in Bloomington. Curtis Rourke is gone. We know it's going to be Fernando Mendoza, but most folks in the Big Ten haven't seen him. We did see Indiana write one of the best stories in all of college football last year. You mentioned the schedule. It's much more difficult in 2025. How likely, in your opinion, is it that Indiana can run it back?
Well, it was the greatest season in school history, so I think running it back is going to be pretty tough. But if NFL people are really high on Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback who came in from Cal. And so people have pretty high hopes on him, potentially one of the top quarterbacks taken next year if he lives up to that. They've got a good number of receivers back. They've got a good number of defensive guys back. I think there's some questions on the line. They had to replace a lot of guys on that defense in some other spots. But you know, Curt Cignetti, he has literally won everywhere he's been. He likes to talk about it, but it's true. And so, like, you can't doubt him that they're going to fall off in any big way. You know, it's a team that could be a very good team, but, you know, win 3 or 4 fewer games than last year. And that's not necessarily a big step back. It's just the nature of the year-to-year schedule and what your team is. You know, if you told Indiana, you know, you're going to win 7 games in the season, that's a big deal for that program, even if it's coming off 11 wins. So the standard has been raised, and I don't see them falling back too far, but you know, I don't think they'll be 11-1 again.
Nebraska not in the top 25, but they are receiving votes. And a lot of folks that I've talked to that cover college football see the Huskers as a big-time sleeper pick heading into 2025. Where do you see them stacking up in the big picture?
Well, it helps that they avoid Ohio State and Oregon. That's certainly nice to see on the schedule. They also don't have a true road game, I think, until like mid-October. So there's a lot of time for this team to kind of gel and figure things out. And Dylan Raiola, the second year as a starter, now he knows kind of how to handle everything, what to do. I think he'll be better. You know, you lose the defensive coordinator, Tony White, who's a really good coach. But I think Nebraska, you've gotten over that hump of getting to a bowl game now. It's not like you have all this pressure of how bad the past couple of years have been. I think people now are just expecting incremental progress, and I think you can see that this year with the way the team and the schedule sets up.
Finally, we saw some improvement in offense from Iowa a year ago. Obviously, it couldn't get much worse than it was the year prior. What makes the difference between what we would consider a mid-year for Iowa, one of those mid-tier bowl games, and another one of Kirk Ferentz's 10-win seasons?
I need to see how they can run the ball. Like Mark Gronowski, the quarterback from South Dakota State, is getting a lot of hype, a lot of attention, even though he's coming off of an injury. I think people have high hopes for him. The defense, you know, is always going to be solid. But I think Caleb Johnson might have been the most underrated player in the country last year, the running back for Iowa, just because you had people like Ashton Jeanty, Cam Scadaboo getting all the attention. He carried that offense last year, and he is gone. And it's going to be kind of a group of guys, I think, who are going to fill the role there for running the ball. So, you know, with Iowa, like, you know, the quarterback, Mark Gronowski, he can run. I'm very curious how he fits into what the offensive coordinator, Tim Lester, is going to run. But I need to make sure Iowa can really run the ball first before I think they can get up into that, you know, 9-10 win type of season. When they have those big breakthrough years, it's usually because they can run the ball pretty well.
Great insight from Chris Vannini. No one does it better. Chris, we appreciate the time. Season almost officially here.
Thanks for having me.